It's a tribute for Mrs. Chana Simpson, the wife of Reb Label Simpson, the daughter-in-law of Reb Elia Simpson, the Frierdiker Rebbe's secretary for Yechidus, the Rebbe's secretary, confidant, and much more. I'll break this tribute into two parts. One is some historical biography, and the other part is some personal recollections. Growing up here in Borough Park, her son, my good friend Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Simpson, the only child of the Simpsons, of Chana and Label Simpson. I spent many hours at their house, learning together with other Chaverim. There were 5 of us in Borough Park who learned in Lubavitch Yeshiva on Ocean Parkway, and we lived in Borough Park, the Winter twins, Baruch Hecht, myself, and Yosef Yitzchak Simpson. And Shabbos afternoon on the long Shabbos, like now, we would, after the meal, in the afternoon, we would go over to his house. We walked over there, and we learned together and then played board games. We'll talk about that a little later, and how important it is to learn from this environment for the children today. But anyway, Chana Simpson was born in Williamsburg in 1936. Her father was born in 1898 or 1899, I believe. He was born here in America as well, because his father came over in the 1880s, 1890s. But her father went back to Europe, and then after Hitler Yamach Shemam announced his plan in 1933 with Mein Kampf and all of that, he saw the writing on the wall, and he said he's going to America. His wife didn't want to leave. He left, and he said, I'm ready to send you a visa to come. It's either a visa or a get. The point being, you have to come now. Of course, she came, and a few years later, they had their daughter Chana. She was one of 4. I believe she had 2 brothers and 1 sister. Growing up in Williamsburg, she was exposed to a very, very Chassidish home. The parents, her parents were very frum. Her father never touched his beard here in America in all those years. And he had a bard and payas. He was a Chassidish Yid. They came originally from Hungary. And the family were by nature very frum people, very Chassidish people. And she grew up in that environment. In growing up in Williamsburg, she had an education in Beis Yaakov of Williamsburg. In fact, I have the yearbook of 1949, and she's listed there as one of the students who is involved kind of in helping other students, maybe teaching a little bit. Again, she was a young teenager then, but you could see that she was given some prominence. It's interesting, there's no picture of her in there, whether she didn't want her picture or they didn't put it in, I don't know. There are other pictures, and also I believe in that there's Esther Goldman, who became later her sister-in-law, is part of that group in this Beis Yaakov 1949 yearbook. Anyway, she went into teaching. She taught in the Beis Yaakov of the Bronx, Beis Yaakov of the East Side, Beis Yaakov of Williamsburg. And later, even after she married and they opened up a Simpson's jewelry store on 13th Avenue, the world-famous Simpson's jewelry store, the beautiful store and the beautiful people, and the service they've given so wonderfully well to Yidden for 70 years or so. She even taught then in the beginning in Beis Yaakov part-time. Anyway, but in 1956, after Rabbi J.J. Hecht opened Camp Emuna, he wanted her and her friend, who were not Lubavitchers, to be the head counselors. He called them for a meeting to his house, and he met with them, and he told them the pay is so-and-so. They weren't happy with it, and they said, they can't do it. Then, they said, thank you, they're going to go get another job. Rabbi Hecht said to them, you have two choices. Either you can walk out through the dining room and you'll be met by the counselors that Lubavitcher girls from Crown Heights or Russian girl from Russian families that just come over, and they're going to be your counselors, and you'll have to deal with them because I've told them already that you are the head counselors, or you can jump out the window if you want to escape. Naturally, they didn't, and they became the head counselors. Issue was that the lifestyle and the culture with the Chabad Russian girls from Russian backgrounds and who had just come to America was very different than Chana Simpson and her friend, who were Williamsburg girls and grew up in a much different atmosphere. And they couldn't relate to them, and they wanted to leave. They came to Rebbe Hecht. Rebbe Hecht said, ask the Rebbe. He asked the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said, explain to them what Lubavitch is. They don't have an idea what Chabad is. They don't have an idea what Lubavitch is in America and how you have to be makar of someone and bring them closer, And also explain to them that these girls, they just came. There's a certain cultural issue here because their parents were running for their lives from Stalin, and they didn't really get that education, and on and on and on, and therefore let them give them some slack, Chana accepted it with her friend, and they remained being the head counselors. The next year, 1957, is when the Rebbe came to visit Camp Emuna. The Rebbe gave out Sidurim, I believe, and when he had Rabbi Chadikov give out the Sidurim, I think, and when he gave out the Siddur, the Rebbe gave a big smile seeing Chana Simpson, because he knew of this, her issue and, how she was upset. Oh, yeah, she said that, so Chana told, when Rabbi Hecht asked her in 1957 to be the head counselor again, she said, I agree, but it has to be counselors that I bring from Beis Yaakov. He said, fine. And so for 1957, she brought her own staff. But nevertheless, the Rebbe gave her that twinkle of the eye, with a smile, and when she got her siddur, that, I got you, and I'm told that, and I saw it myself in growing up and, knowing her from the childhood, that she became a full-fledged Lubavitcher, Although they lived, the Simpsons, the family name was Folman, and they lived on Bedford Avenue across the Satmar Rebbe's house, who originally was the Satmar Beis Medrash. And naturally, they had a kesher, a closeness, a relationship. The families did, but the family himself, I believe, became Baler Hasidim because her older brother, Reb Zisha, he lived in Crown Heights in the 57 in those years, and he became the Menachem, or one of the leaders in the yeshiva, the Baba Yeshiva, which was at 184 Brooklyn Avenue, where the Frierdiker Rebbe stayed in 1929. I made a clip about that, the details, and videoed it. You should look at that. But then the Baba Rebbe bought that property, and that's where he started his Hasidus in Crown Heights. And Zisha Folman was his Menahel of the yeshiva, and he became very close to him. So they became Baba Chasidim. But again, they had lived, when they were children, they lived in Williamsburg, so across the Satmar Rebbe, so there was a connection there. But Chana, being in Camp Emuna, really got to know Chabad from, Chabad, even though in those days, no one was pushing Rebbe, Chabad, Mashiach, Nifzoim. It was a very different time. But nevertheless, the Rebbe came, she saw that. And an interesting story is told that when the Rebbe came, she had all the campers line up, and they made a sign, Yechia Deneinu Moreinu V'Rabbeinu. And when the Rebbe walked in, he had the children shout out, Yechia Deneinu Moreinu V'Rabbeinu. Why? Because she had seen and grew up with the Satmar Rav, when the Hasidim when they would come out from time to time, they would say, Yechia Deneinu Rabbeinu. So she, by her, when a Rebbe comes, she knew you say, Yechia Deneinu Rabbeinu. So maybe she was the first Meshachist. Anyway, going back to to her development, so she was already, 1956, 20 years old. In 1959, a cousin of hers, Rabbi Landau, whose mother's maiden name was Folman, knew Label Simpson, and also knew her, the cousin, and he paired them together. And they asked the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said it was a good idea. Interesting. Her father wasn't so much for the shidduch with the Lubavitcher. He was more influenced by Satmar and etc. So when he brought to the Satmar Rebbe, when he said, I have two, he had two suggestions, different, other than different than the Simpson. The Satmar Rebbe said there must be a third. He was like shocked. How he knew, whatever, don't know. And when he heard who the third was, he says, it's a good family. I know, I think Rabbi Simpson, you heard of him, is the Rashab's a Talmud, a Chayzer by the Rashab, by the Satmarov. The Rashab was Kaddish, very, very holy. Anyway, she marries Label Simpson, and of course, Label Simpson was very, very quiet. Those who knew him, you can hardly hear any word from him. So on the first date, they dated, they met, and they met, and she's speaking, and he's not saying a word. So the next time, she's not interested in meeting him again. I can't, marry someone who doesn't talk. So the next time he spoke the entire time, and the joke is that he spoke enough, more than he spoke the next 50, 60 years. But anyway, they opened up the Simpson's jewelry store, and actually the one who, on 13th Avenue, off 50th Street, where it's today, it was Rabbi Elia Simpson, who himself took off his kapota, had a toolbox, and he banged in nails and screws, whatever, with the panels, and he made a little shop for them to do retail jewelry. And they still have the toolbox of Rabbi Elia Simpson. He was very handy and good with his hands. And that's how it started. They went into, after years, they went into the Rebbe, and he went into the Rebbe label, and said Parnosa is not making Parnosa, he's just paying bills. And so the Rebbe said, it's Kenneth Zayin, can't be. The label was a couple or so, every word from the Rebbe, he didn't ask, and the Rebbe said to Kenneth Zayin, he goes out. Tells his wife, tells Chana, the Rebbe said to Kenneth Zayin. So Chana says, did you ask him, but you tell him, but the books, we did a cheshbon, we did an accounting, and we're not making money. She says, he says to her, I should tell the Rebbe. The Rebbe said, Kenneth Zayin. If the Rebbe said it can't be, that's the reality. And the family says that from that day on, they started to make find panosa from their store. Because the Rebbe said it's Kenneth Zayin, so in other words, there has to be a change. Or you made a mistake, whatever. Pretty much the rest of her life was dedicated to helping people, to working in the store. She was very much involved. She didn't, many times she went to Manhattan to do the shopping of jewelry, the buying of jewelry, and for the store, on wholesale, and then they sold at retail, things like that. One other part then, lately they opened the school, Bnos Menachem, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak, together with Rabbi Gerari, opened up the store, and Rabbi Label and Chana Simpson very much the financial backers of the yeshiva of the school, of the Bnos Menachem Girls School, Chabad Girls School in Crown Heights, and have developed a school that's l'shem l'seferes. It's beautiful, it's nias and good learning, and the Simpson family, the Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak and his parents were very much part of it. Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak himself was involved in the administration and different things. It's not just like, you write a check and you go and do whatever you want. But he took a personal interest, and his mother, Shalom Chana, was pushing him to get involved, and she herself was involved. So this is Taka, when on the way to the oil to be buried, they stopped at Bnos Menachem, and all the children came out, and they said Tillim, they had papers, and they said Tillim, because she was like the bubby, the mommy of Bnos Menachem, which itself is a schus for her neshama, of course. Now, just a few things from growing up. When I went to the house, the Simpsons house, in the 70s, talking about 74, 75, 76, maybe 73 even, it was such a tranquil place. It was quiet. It was clean. They had only one child, their son. And it the serenity and the peacefulness was contagious. In my home and in the winter's home and Baruch Hechzon, we had other siblings and other things. We came. It was to my home and the winter's home and Holocaust homes. We were second generation Holocaust survivors. There's tension with that. The Simpsons was, both born in America. Abel was born in America, and Chana was born in America. A lot of tranquility, and that itself was so soothing. Soothing feeling, such a peaceful feeling. This is the way I felt. I don't know how my friends felt, but I felt this way. That's the first thing that comes to mind. The second thing, I would come in and I would see many times how Chana, Mrs. Simpson, and Label and Rabbi Simpson are sitting at the kitchen table and sitting and having a glass of tea and just talking a few words you can barely hear, But that also was a very, very powerful scene that I saw, how a husband and wife, are communicating and relating in a certain way, which wasn't rash, noise, and friction. I don't know if negative friction, but loud, and it was a very important lesson for me as a very young teenager to see this. Finally, when we came there, we would learn first, and after learning, we play board games. And Mrs. Simpson would say to me, Chayimul. I remember she would call me Chayimul. My name is Chaim. Chayimul. She said it with such endearing love that I still remember it now. So this is now 50 years later or so, and it's ringing in my ears. She was a very, very warm, outgoing person, and over the years, whenever she saw me, she would express that warmth. I remember at the vort of her latest grandson, Zalman Simpson, I went over to her, and I didn't think she would remember me. She wasn't doing well, and much older, of course. And she remembered me. How do I know? Because the next day she told Yosef Yitzchak, her son, I saw Chaim Dalfin. And even at the wedding, Zalman's wedding, I got around the mechitzas over there in the back, and I went up to her, and she was really, really much weaker. And I said Mazel Tov to her, and she responded. So Baruch Hashem, that these childhood memories live on, and we take them as a lesson for us. And may her neshama taka happen aliyah. And I can just tell you that she went 100% into the Rebbe's and Yonim and became a Lubavitcher Chassidista. And interesting, I was told that her husband, Abel, never told her what to do about, religion and Chabad and Minhagim. If she, after a while, asked him, he would say sometimes, yes, you do it this way, you do it that way. He was very much a Shulchan Aruch Yid. So he didn't push, Lubavitchkeit and Chassidishkeit on her. Again, she came from a Chassidish home. But I'm saying not Lubavitch, not Chabad. But she herself gravitated to that. And has left a beautiful family with grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And Menachem will soon see Mashiach with Chias HaMesim, with Chana Simpson, B'Teichon, and will be Zeicher to the Gula Shlema, B'Korav Mamish, Amen v'Amen.